Have you ever stopped to think about what it really means to be strong? I'm not talking about the kind of strength that lifts weights or breaks bones. I'm talking about that invisible kind of strength, you know? The one that keeps you standing when everything around you is falling apart. The series we're exploring today, Ranking of Kings, is exactly that. It tells the story of a deaf prince, one who doesn't speak and who's too weak to even hold a sword. A boy that everyone sees as a total failure. But then comes the surprise. That same boy becomes the strongest person in the entire kingdom, but not in the way you'd expect. Ranking of Kings isn't just another action anime. It's a story about friendship, redemption, and discovering that a king's true strength isn't measured by how many knights he commands or how much gold his crown holds. It's about learning to forgive, trusting others, and holding on to the people you love. So let's dive into this world, where a scorned little prince becomes the key to changing everything.
If you find something which truly matters to you, you ought to pursue that something with all your heart.
We start by discovering how a king's quality is measured by the ranking of kings. It's like a leaderboard that takes into account the number of knights, the kingdom's wealth, and the king's own strength, and that's where we meet Prince Bojji, the eldest son of King Boss. The problem? He's deaf, unable to speak, and so weak he can't even lift a sword. A quick flashback shows his mother, a giantess, telling him he's going to be the greatest king of all. In the present, Bojji is mugged by a shadow creature named Kage, who steals all his clothes. But Bojji, instead of getting angry, is overjoyed to finally have someone to talk to. He returns to town in his underwear, and everyone makes fun of him, calling him an idiot.
He's an idiot, deaf and mute to make matters worse. And to top it off, he can barely swing a children's sword from what I've been told.
Kage, who is from a supposedly extinct clan of assassins, is intrigued by the prince's positive vibe and continues to meet up with him. Bojji even shares his dream of becoming the greatest king of all, and Kage, of course, bursts out laughing. Following the prince to the castle, Kage sees his stepmother, Queen Healing, chewing the boy out and saying that her own son, the powerful Prince Daida, is the one who deserves the throne. After Bojji goes to his room to cry, Kage is captured by Babin, one of the king's henchmen. Later, we see Bojji's brother, Daida, humiliating his fencing master in a training session. He then challenges Bojji to a duel. Unable to use a real sword, Bojji picks up a wooden one. The fight begins, and to everyone's surprise, Bojji basically becomes Neo from the Matrix, dodging every one of Daida's blows with surreal speed and agility. Here, we dive into the tragic past of Kage, the shadow creature. We learn he's part of a nearly extinct clan. In a desperate escape, his mother sacrifices herself so he can get away, telling him to run into a toxic forest. He's cornered by other soldiers, but a little girl tricks the guards and saves him. The girl's father even gives him some money and tells him to get lost and head to another kingdom. Alone in the world, Kage goes through hell. He ends up being adopted by a thief who uses his shadow abilities to steal from the castle treasury, but his partner in crime dies in a bar fight, and Kage is back to square one, getting beaten up and rejected by everyone in the new town. The guy's life is a pit of misery. One day, he sees Prince Bojji, all well dressed and looking like a simpleton, and considers robbing him, but instead, he ends up watching a training match between Bojji and his brother Daida. Bojji is masterfully dodging every attack, but the crowd and his own instructor, Domas, start booing his fighting style. Domas says that a true king needs to trade blows, and that his fencing is useless. Taking the criticism to heart, Bojji simply stops dodging and lets Daida turn him into a punching bag. Kage watches the scene in horror, screaming for him to stop.
Stop! Stop it!
While Bojji sleeps, Kage spies on Queen Healing as she enters the room and uses green magic to heal all the prince's wounds. As he leaves the castle, Kage runs into a man named Babin, who summons a gang of snakes and corners him. The scene cuts to some heavy news. King Boss is dead. In his will, he names Prince Bojji as his successor, which sends Prince Daida into a rage. To make things even weirder, a red demon emerges from the dead king's body, points at Bojji, and vanishes. It's wild. Daida then rushes to converse with a magic mirror, which reassures him that its plan for him to become king will succeed. During the public announcement, Queen Healing interrupts everything. In a closed-door meeting, she argues that Bojji is unfit to rule and forces a vote. With only Domas voting in Bojji's favor, the council nullifies the will. The minister then announces to the crowd that Daida is the new king. Shocked and heartbroken, Bojji runs out of the castle in tears. Meanwhile, Kage, who was imprisoned and hanging from a hook in a dungeon, manages to free himself. He's confronted confronted again by Bebin, and Kage insists he only wants to help Bojji. Bebin then finds Bojji and tells him the cruelest lie imaginable. He says Kage has left on a journey and will never return. Devastated by the news, Bojji runs through the fields, crying out for the friend he thinks he's lost. In a flashback, we see King Boss ordering the swordsman Domus to train Bojji. The training is brutal, and Domus realizes his style is useless for the little prince, who can barely lift a wooden sword. But then Queen Healing gives him a tip: use sign language. And just like that, it's magic. Domus and Bojji finally connect, and the emotional swordsman vows to protect the boy no matter the cost.
You will be fine exactly as you are. I swear to you, I will keep you safe.
Meanwhile, a judge from the ranking of kings arrives on the scene. In a mirror on the wall type of moment, King Daida is told by a magic mirror that he needs to get rid of Bojji and take King Boss's strength to secure the throne. But Daida, full of swagger, wants to make it on his own. Bojji, Domus, and a soldier named Hokuro set off on a journey. In one town, Bojji gets careless and has his bag stolen, earning him a lecture from Domus about flaunting his wealth. Later, they get lost in the forest, and Bojji falls into a hole, where he meets a wild king who shares his food with him in a very random moment. The trip gets even more tense when the group is attacked by poisoned knives that kill a family of foxes, leaving Bojji and Hokuro deeply shaken. They finally reach a town near the gates of hell, a chasm that leads to the underworld, and that's where the script is flipped on its head. Domus leads Bojji to the edge of the precipice and, to everyone's shock, pushes the boy right in. As Domus weeps with regret, Daida has a nightmare and decides that he will, after all, steal his father's power, descending a sinister staircase with the mirror. After being thrown into a fiery pit by Domus, Bojji is falling to his certain death, except he's not. A grappling hook saves the boy, who lands safely. It was all just a vision. He sees his bag on the ground, and from inside it emerges Kage, his shadow friend. The joy is so overwhelming that Bojji collapses in tears at the reunion. Kage explains that he's been secretly protecting Bojji all along on the orders of the snake charmer, Bebin. It was a plan to deceive their enemies. Now, their mission is to actually descend into the underworld to find someone who can make Bojji the strongest man in the world. At the castle, King Daida confronts Domus, furious that he betrayed his mission. Daida expresses his disappointment and gives Domus a new secret task. Later, the magic mirror leads Daida to a hidden chamber, where he finds his father's preserved body. The scene gets even more bizarre. He watches a phoenix hatch from an egg, only to be killed instantly. Its blood is mixed with a resurrection jewel to create an elixir. The mirror tells Daida to drink it to gain King Boss's power, but he refuses, insisting he'll become #1 on his own. Out of patience, the mirror's masked servant sees him. Meanwhile, Hokuro, Domus's squire, finds him in a desert. Domus confesses that his mission was to kill Prince Bojji and that he succeeded. Horrified, Hokuro can barely react as Domus, consumed by guilt, cuts off his own hand in penance. Bojji and Kage arrive in the underworld, a giant city inside a cavern. They head straight for the castle of the big boss, King Desha, the second-ranked king overall. Desha doesn't waste any time and starts mocking Bojji, laughing about his father's death and how the helpless prince was cast aside. When Kage explains they're looking for a Des-something who can grant strength, Desha reveals the guy is him. To test Bojji's potential, Desha pits him against the captain of the Underworld Order, a giant fully armored knight. Obviously, Bojji can't land a single blow. Kage begs for another chance, saying Bojji's real skill is his evasion. Desha reluctantly agrees. The captain unleashes a flurry of attacks, but Bojji, in an impressive ballet, dodges absolutely everything.
Can you handle this?
Leaving the captain and Desha himself jaw-dropped. Even so, Desha refuses to train him. He says Bojji can survive a fight, but never win one, since he lacks the strength to break through armor. It's a pointless quest. As they're being kicked out, Kage hands over a letter of recommendation, which Desha angrily tears to shreds, but the captain secretly returns the pieces to Kage and explains they were looking for the wrong person. The man they want is Desha's younger brother, Prince Despa, a sage with whom Desha is constantly at odds. Meanwhile, King Daida is tied to a chair as Miranjo appears in the mirror. When Apis, the king's spear, confronts her, she blackmails him into a monster. Then, Zoku, one of the knights, forces Daida to drink an elixir made from the ground-up mortal remains of King Boss. Yes, a dad smoothie. The boy struggles, but eventually passes out, while an armored man watches, clearly in despair. Cut to Bojji and Kage, who arrive at the home of a man named Despa. The mission? To make Bojji stronger. Kage hands over a torn-up letter of recommendation from Bethan, which Despa's brother, King Desha, had ripped to pieces. Despa reads the letter and discovers Bojji is King Boss's son. He takes the opportunity to brag, saying his brother is jealous of him, and agrees to train Bojji in exchange for a chest full of jewels. Deal. Inside, Despa assesses Bojji and is shocked. The boy has literally zero physical strength. He declares that Bojji's body will never get stronger, no matter how much he trains. Bojji is devastated and tries to leave, but Despa stops him. He says that since he's been paid, he's obligated to help and promises to make Bojji stronger than anyone.
You'll be fine. I'm going to help you become stronger than anyone.
The next morning, Bojji prepares a purple stew with a horrible smell for breakfast. While he eats it happily, Despa and Kage nearly vomit just from the scent. Despa figures that, being a giant's son, Bojji's stomach can handle anything, even poison, and forbids the boy from going near the kitchen for everyone's safety.
Exactly! It is vital that Bojji be kept out of the kitchen! Yes, avoiding his cooking is a matter of life and death for us!
The training begins. Despa takes him to an armory and tells him to choose a weapon. After glimpsing reflections of his past failures, Bojji chooses a sword that Despa immediately approves of, declaring that with it, Bojji will be invincible. As the secret training unfolds, we see Boss, in Daida's body, in a dark throne room, saying that once again, he has sacrificed his own son. We get a flashback showing a muscular man named Boss making a pact with a demon to become the strongest man in the world. The price? The strength would be stolen from someone of his own blood. Since he had no relatives, the demon tells him he needs to have a son. Boss accepts. In another memory, he meets the world's strongest woman, a giantess, and asks her to marry him. After an insane fight, she's impressed and accepts. When their son is born, Boss gains absurd power, but is consumed by guilt, remembering the demon's price. He uses his newfound strength to build a kingdom, vowing his son would want for nothing. Back in the present, King Boss learns from the magic mirror, Miranjo, that he isn't the strongest. Miranjo reminds him of his promise to kill Queen Healing. Meanwhile, Hokuro informs Healing that Bojji is still alive. Elsewhere, a guilt-ridden Domas is confronted by Hokuro, but refuses to return to the castle and locks his friend in a room. Hokuro escapes and tells Healing everything, who, in a fit of stress, sentences him to death. Boss unleashes 4 monstrous beasts in the throne room and kills one with ease, approving Miranjo's plan to assassinate Healing. At Hokuro's execution, a hooded Domas attacks the guards and frees him. Boss appears to confront them, and Domas reveals himself. Then comes the twist of the century. He reveals himself to be King Boss, having taken over Daida's body. To top it all off, the magic mirror announces that Bojji is now the strongest person in the world. Daida, who is now King Boss, needs to prove his identity to Queen Healing. And how does he do it? By crushing a wooden log with his bare hands until it turns into a diamond. Exactly as Boss once did for her. Realizing her son is gone, Healing faints in Domus's arms. Later, as she lies delirious in bed, Domus stands guard outside until he's attacked by 3 demonic beasts. A flashback reveals that King Boss had appointed Domus as Heiling's personal guard, which Domus interpreted as a sign that the king no longer trusted him. Other flashbacks show Healing's first frustrated attempts to connect with Bojji, which led her to learn sign language to be able to communicate with him. Back in the present, Domus fights the beasts and, to get serious, takes off his armor in true anime character fashion. The attack was all orchestrated by Miranjo, who watches everything through her mirror. Just as Domus is about to be defeated, he remembers Boss warning him of an assassination attempt on Healing. Against all odds, he defeats the beasts. and Miranjo's plan fails. She and Boss share a bizarre dance before her magic runs out and she collapses. Meanwhile, the real Daida is trapped in a dark void. He hears his mother's voice and cries out for her, but the connection is lost. Hyling wakes up, having heard Daida, and tries to run to him but is stopped by Domus. Boss orders Domus to take Hyling out of the country to keep her safe. Alone in the void, Daida realizes Miranjo is behind his imprisonment and vows to kill her.
It's all her fault! I will destroy you! You hear me? I swear it, Mirror! I'll kill you!
Bojji finally finishes his training and emerges with what looks like a gigantic sword. Kage is super disappointed to find out it's just a tiny rapier inside a huge sheath, but Despa explains that the cover is meant to create an impression of strength. It's like having a giant gaming PC case with a Celeron inside. At a bar, Despa is already celebrating, saying Bojji has mastered the Despa arts and is now untouchable in battle. The party is crashed by the three brutish Oben brothers, who mock Bojji and insult Despa's appearance. Deeply offended, Despa charges at them and gets completely wrecked in seconds. That's when Bojji steps in to protect his master. Without even drawing his weapon, he dodges every attack and hits the guy's weak points, knocking all three out. When the oldest brother Oben gets up and pulls out an axe, Bojji draws his rapier and defeats him with a single precise strike. Despa explains Bojji's new style. He incapacitates opponents by striking nerve endings to cause a concussion or even stop the heart, all without causing permanent damage. And the plot twist? Despa had hired the brothers to test Bojji in a real fight. When Kage asks how he got so fast, a flashback shows Bojji training with the giant snake, Mitsumata, learning to dodge attacks until he could sense movement from the air alone. Meanwhile, Beben discovers that monsters from the underworld have attacked the castle and Miranjo has gone there. Kage spills the tea to Bojji, who, after a moment of feeling down, decides it's time to go home. We go back to Prince Gaida's childhood. His mother, Queen Healing, always told him his brother Bojji was a weak child who needed protection. To make matters worse, he finds a magic mirror that inflates his ego, telling him he was born to be king. You can see where this is going, right? Daida started treating Bojji like he was completely useless. Daida complains to Beben about his brother's training, and Beben decides to give him a reality check by taking the prince for a walk through the city. Daida is disgusted by the poverty and sickness. When Beben points to a blind and deaf man, Daida blurts out that he'd rather die than live such a pathetic life. Beben shoots back, saying the man only endures because of the prosperous kingdom Daida's father built. Suddenly, Daida returns to his mind, where he meets a crying girl named Miranjo. Ghosts appear, accusing Miranjo of being a monster who killed them all and destroyed their land. They reveal that, as revenge, they tortured her, skinning her and cutting off her hands. Horrified by the ghost cruelty, Daida attacks them to protect the girl, promising to get them out of there. Miranjo then says he has the same scent as a man named Boss.
Have you ever met a man named Boss?
What's that?
You have the same smell as him.
His smell?
Meanwhile, King Desha discovers a powerful prisoner has escaped the underworld and orders his knights to invade the kingdom of Boss. Bojji and Kage bid farewell to Despa and catch a ride with these knights, who reveal they're hunting 6 dangerous criminals, including one named Oken. To wrap things up, the 6 fugitives, led by the magic mirror, appear in the throne room to confront Daida. The voice from the magic mirror, Miranjo, drops a bomb. She wants the kingdom to be destroyed. Beside her, the knight Apis confirms his loyalty. Like a classic movie villain's lackey, Miranjo wastes no time and summons a horde of demonic beasts. Domus and the Shield Knights immediately charge into battle. An warns Queen Healing that the creatures are just the warm-up and that they will protect her. Domus, completely surrounded, activates his hedgehog mode and shoots spikes from his body, sending several monsters to their doom. But then Zoku and Gigan arrive, 2 brutes who demand to fight the knights. Miranjo, finding it all amusing, agrees and sends the beasts to focus on Hyling. Gigan stomps the ground with a Street Fighter-like move and knocks over the knights like bowling pins, leaving only Domus and An standing. But as Hyling tries to flee, the immortal Ulkin appears and attacks. She uses her Holy Light ability, but it just tickles Ulkin. After he finishes off the knight, Healing uses all her energy to heal An and collapses, surrounded by the beasts. Domus is crushed by a stone slab, but when Bojji and the Underworld Order arrive, he has a Hulk moment, lifts the rock, and knocks out Gigan. He fights bravely, but is eventually swallowed by the horde. In the city, Ulkin is on a rampage. Despot warns the Order's captain not to face the immortal, but he's ignored. As Bojji rushes toward the castle, Apis is ambushed by Red and Black. Just as he's about to fight back, Zoku appears, apologizes, and knocks him out. The true boss has just entered the scene. In the castle courtyard, all hell is breaking loose. Even after losing a foot, he stays in the fight, but things are looking grim. Just as the beasts are about to land the final blow, he screams for the queen to run. Out of nowhere, a giant two-headed snake, Mitsumata, bursts from the ground to save the day. A quick flashback shows that a young Bojji in Healing found and healed this very snake. With the monsters distracted, Mitsumata tells Healing to heal Dorsha, and she gets him back to good as new, but the relief is short-lived. Gigan, the giant ogre, arrives and gives Mitsumata a serious beatdown, leaving her critically injured. Bojji and Kage show up just as the ogre is about to finish the snake off. Kage throws a bag of potions to Healing, but she's out of mana. Looking like an RPG item master, Kage pulls out more potions. Healing chugs them all and manages to heal not only Mitsumata, but Dorsha as well. Now, it's Bojji's time to shine. He faces Gigan, remembering his training with Despa about finding an opponent's weak spot, just like a video game boss. To show he's not messing around, he shatters a giant boulder with his rapier, and bam! A single poke to the giant's weak spot on his foot sends him crashing to the ground. One-hit KO. The group reunites, and Gigan swears loyalty to Bojji. Healing finally accepts Kage, and showing her kind heart even heals the remaining demonic beasts. Far away, King Desha arrives at the entrance to the underworld, while Despa and his men finally manage to restrain Ulkin. Despot explains that immortality has corrupted the prince's soul, and Desha's real plan is to save him by stopping Miranjo. The battle is over, but the trouble's not. Kage warns that they need to return the underworld beasts through a portal beneath the castle. Hailing is pissed that no one ever told her about this. The two-headed snake, Mitsumata, warns them that Domus is already on his way to seal the gate under King Boss's orders. Healing asks if Bojji is ready to face his former mentor.
Bojji, you may cross paths with Domus. Are you prepared?
And Bojji freezes up. He starts having flashbacks of Domus pushing him into the fiery abyss. It's a total trigger. Kage shakes him out of it, reminding him that he's strong now and has friends to back him up. With his confidence restored, Bojji leads the way. Meanwhile, Domus and Hokuro arrive at the giant gate, which opens to reveal the Order of the Underworld in full armor. They accuse Domus's kingdom of releasing the prisoners and threaten war. Domus tries to explain, but it's no use. It's time to fight. He proves to be a master strategist, retreating to a staircase to fight in a narrow corridor where he can hold off multiple enemies. Even so, he's eventually overwhelmed. Just as he's about to be defeated, King Desha appears. He says he came to fight King Boss, not his employees. To prove his point, Desha decides to fight Domus, and with a single humiliating blow, disarms him and forces him to his knees. Ashamed but not broken, Domus gets up to fight again. But before the order can finish him, Gigan smashes through the ceiling, arriving with Bojji and Kage. The party's all here. Seeing everyone who's ever wronged him in one place, Domus, Desha, the underworld crew, is too much for Bojji. He has a full-blown panic attack, overwhelmed by all the bad memories. King Desha kicks the door down and makes his announcement. He's here for one person, Miranjo. Just hearing her name, Bojji has a devastating flashback, remembering his giantess mother being killed by a rain of arrows to protect him, all orchestrated by Miranjo. In the present, Bojji wipes away his tears and braces for a fight. Desha orders his knights to take the defeated Gigan, but Bojji steps in front of him as if to say, "Leave my giant alone." Then Desha lays out the backstory. Gigan was a mercenary he hired in the war against his own father. To defeat his father's army of giants, Desha's plan was to use a young giant as bait to lure the others into a fire trap. Gigan got pissed at this cowardly act, turned on Desha's men, and ended up a wanted criminal. The giant breaks free and charges at Desha, who retaliates with a bolt of lightning.
Such is life during times of war!
Bojji!
But Bojji, faster than the Flash, deflects the attack. Kage explains that Bojji is Despa's apprentice and just wants Gigon to stick around. Just then, Desha gets a telepathic call from his brother Despa, who sets him straight. There's no point in fighting King Boss, the guy's too OP. The new plan is to let Bojji fight Boss, and while they're distracted, Desha's forces will kill Miranjo and the demon. Desha agrees, announces his retreat, and declares that Gigon will now serve in the Order of the Underworld. As the Order leaves with a reluctant Gigon, Domus and Hokuro stay behind, breaking down in tears and apologizing for their betrayals. Bojji sees their remorse and heads up the stairs, followed by Kage. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the immortal Oken manages to break free from his chains. A narrator cuts in for a history lesson. There was once a god, King Satan, who wanted to be immortal. He had 3 sons with a human, the super powerful Desha, the near-human Despa, and Oken, who was strong but otherwise normal. The 3 brothers overthrew their father, but Oken's unwanted immortality became a curse. After a psychotic break, he was defeated by Desha and imprisoned in the underworld. Back in the present, Bojji and Kage find Apis passed out on the floor. As they try to help, Miranjo, from within her mirror, summons Olkin. The immortal prince simply dislocates his own bones to escape his cell, like a Cirque du Soleil contortionist.
He broke his own bones?
That's true.
Apis wakes up and tells Bojji straight up, "Get out of here." He reveals Miranjo's plan is to kill Queen Healing and destroy the kingdom. What's more, King Boss was revived in Daida's body to help Miranjo achieve her dream of traveling alone with him. Seeing Bojji's newfound confidence, Apis lets him go. Meanwhile, Desha goes to confront Miranjo, but she reveals she now controls Olkin. Desha flees and runs right into Bojji. He pretends to surrender and releases a poison gas, but it doesn't even faze our little prince. Olkin unleashes a flurry of sword strikes. Bojji dodges and lands several hits, but it's like punching a wall. Olkin's sword shatters against Bojji's rapier. But he instantly repairs it with a black ooze. Kage learns from Miranjo that Olkin can't be killed and tries to warn Bojji to retreat, but instead of attacking, Bojji moves to shield Desha from Olkin. Kage, confused, asks the mirror who she is. The voice finally introduces herself. "My name is Miranjo," and admits she's the mastermind behind this whole mess. In a dungeon, Domus corners Daida and demands to know who the voice in the mirror is. Daida opens his heart and reveals it's Miranjo, the person he loves most. Elsewhere, Healing and her knights find Apis, who confesses he was poisoned while trying to stop Miranjo's plan. Healing uses her magic to heal him, draining all her energy in the process, like a phone battery hitting 1%. Afterwards, she sends Apis, Dorsha, Domus, and Hokuro to find and help Bojji, placing all her hope in her son. As Domus is leaving, Boss, still in Daida's body, begins to tell his story. It's flashback time. Years ago, Boss traveled to the Huma Kingdom, a nation of mages who defied the gods. There, he challenged and killed Miranjo's father. Mortally wounded, Boss was saved by her mother, and the woman's kindness convinced him to stay. In the midst of the war against the gods, the Huma allied with the Gyuza kingdom, a treacherous people who lived by deceit. The Gyuza took advantage of the Huma's goodwill, murdered Miranjo's mother, and handed them over to the gods, which led to the kingdom's total destruction. Back in the present, Bojji continues his standoff with the immortal Olkin. Despa and the captain of the underworld knights arrive, and Desha zaps Olkin with lightning from a distance. But Olkin survives, using his own body as a lightning rod, and stabs his sword into Despa. Bojji flies into a rage and shatters Olkin's body. But the guy regenerates in a flash. Just as Olkin is about to finish off an exhausted Bojji, Kage appears and in a masterful move, swallows the immortal knight whole. That's right, he just got eaten. King Olkin listens to the villagers' complaints about the Huma kingdom with an innocent face, but moments later, he flashes a Joker-like grin and reveals his true plan, to enslave the Gyakuza people after burning everything down. In a flashback, we see a giant named Gigon who, upon seeing a child being mistreated, breaks his chains and basically goes goes Hulk, massacring the entire town. He brings a bag of treasures to a mage, begging him to heal the injured little girl, who is none other than Miranjo. Back in the present, Boss confesses to Bebin that he was the one who prevented Miranjo's recovery. Bebin, not mincing words, warns that Bojji needs Boss and that if necessary, he'll shatter the mirror himself. Meanwhile, in the castle, the immortal knight Ulkin is about to finish off a weeping Bojji on the ground, but at the last second, the mirror glows and Miranjo possesses Red's body to heal Bojji. Red touches Bojji, and this throws Domas into a bizarre vision. He realizes they're in Miranjo's mind, in a sort of upside-down style realm between life and death. There, Kage sees his deceased mother on the other side of a river and gets in a boat to cross to her. Even with Bojji screaming for him, Kage continues, until Miranjo appears and stops the boat. Torn between his mother and his friend, Kage chooses to help Bojji and rows back to the world of the living. The Big Four, Domas, Bebin, Dorsha, and Apis, charge at Ulkin. They coordinate their attacks, coming at him one after the other, but it's no use. The man's immortal body regenerates, Wolverine style, and he defeats them all in short order.
What? Over here!
As Ulkin is about to land the final blow, the Big Four rise again, declaring they are the kingdom's last line of defense.
We're the Big Four, the last bastion of the kingdom.
Bojji, Despa, Queen Sheena, and Miranjo's mother arrive at the shore of the underworld. A flashback shows Bojji's giantess mother, Queen Sheena, showing him the kingdom before being killed in an attack. At the shore, Miranjo faces her mother and Sheena. To everyone's surprise, Sheena holds no grudge for being murdered by Miranjo. On the contrary, she praises how strong Bojji has become. Another flashback reveals Miranjo's own death and her pact with a demon to transfer her soul into a mirror. In despair, Miranjo unleashes a powerful energy that throws Bojji and Despa back into the world of the living, as if to say, "Get out of my head." In a dark void, Despa shows Bojji Miranjo's memories. They return to the battlefield, where the knights are getting pummeled by the immortal Ulkin. Despa, Bojji, and Kage are bleeding profusely. Despa tells Kage to find the captain, who knows a technique to stop the bleeding. It's then that Kage realizes his own wounds have already healed, a feat of Miranjo's own doing. As Ulkin is about to kill the captain, King Boss, now in Daida's body, arrives in full force. He releases a green light that heals everyone on the battlefield, like an area of effect healing spell in an RPG. Bojji and Kage reunite in a hug of pure friendship. Despa tells Bojji to stand aside and let his father fight. Boss smashes Ulkin with his club, but the man regenerates. Out of patience, Boss crushes Ulkin's body into a tiny ball, swallows him, and walks away as if nothing happened. Boss, in Daida's body, faces Bojji and his allies. He walks to the throne and starts talking to Miranjo in the mirror, laying out her entire past. Miranjo remembers her love for the giant king Boss and her fear of his death. Knowing that a giantess can only have one child, she devised a soap opera-worthy plan. She summoned an enemy nation to attack the castle, using the infant Bojji as bait to kill Queen Sheena, also that Daida could be born and serve as a vessel for Boss's resurrection. After hearing the confession, Boss forgives her, saying it's all his fault. Back in the courtyard, Boss demands loyalty from the Big Four. Either they serve him or they die. Domas, Bebin, Apis, and Dorsha defy the king and side with Prince Bojji. Furious, Boss declares they've chosen death. Domas attacks first but is easily struck down. Bojji intervenes, disarming Domas without killing him. Despa explains that Bojji's swordsmanship is that of a king who refuses to kill.
Bojji is a most merciful swordsman. Merciful? Which is to say, his is the swordsmanship of a king who's rejected killing.
Boss attacks Bojji with his club.
It's Bojji!
But the boy dodges and runs up the castle wall, parkour style. Boss destroys the wall, but Bojji uses the debris to leap onto his shoulder and strike the club, shattering it to pieces. Defeated, Boss drags himself back to the throne room and collapses in front of Miranjo's mirror. Realizing her selfish desires caused all this, Miranjo begs Bojji to destroy her. Bojji smashes the mirror, releasing her soul. A giant red demon appears and devours Miranjo, revealing the pact she made. King Boss's happiness in exchange for serving the demon, all after her people were massacred and she was horribly mutilated. The demon then drags her soul to a hellish realm. In a dark void, King Boss's spirit decides to open the memory chest for Prince Daida. He shows his past with a young Miranjo, from the moment he saved her from falling off a cliff to the years they spent together as she grew up. The two traveled the world together, but Boss eventually settled for a quiet life, abandoning his dream of being the strongest man on the planet. Wanting to give him a push, Miranjo started arranging opponents for him, but Boss found them all too weak and asked for a real challenge. That's when Miranjo led him to fight Satun, the king of the gods, who obviously wiped the floor with him. Desperate, Miranjo sought out a wish-granting demon. Boss showed up and made the wish himself, to be the strongest man in the world. The demon agreed, but with a sinister condition. In exchange, he would take the strength of Boss's yet unborn son, Bojji. Horrified, Daida finally understands that his own father stole Bojji's power. The vision ends with Boss's last words, asking Miranjo to take care of Daida. The magic mirror shatters, and Daida returns to life in his original body. In the courtyard, the underworld demon makes an appearance. The captain of the underworld knights rips its head off and demands a wish in return. But before he can ask for Oaken's resurrection, Daida steps in and wishes for Miranjo to live again. The wish is granted, and Miranjo is revived. Daida embraces her, and to everyone's shock, asks her to marry him. The captain's men are furious, but Despa, seeing that Oaken has been freed from his immortality, lets it go. Instead, he demands gold as compensation, and says Miranjo's penance will be to tell her story to prevent future tragedies. Queen Healing arrives, and upon learning Daida is marrying Miranjo, lets out a scream of pure shock.
I have decided to take her as my wife.
Huh?
Meanwhile, King Desha accepts first place in the ranking of kings and heads for the treasure vault. Then, Daida bows before his knights, apologizing for his pride and the consequences of his actions. When Dorsha asks him to hand the crown over to Prince Bojji, Daida agrees, saying that was always his intention. He kneels before Bojji, thanking him for showing him what it means to be a true king. Bojji, suffering from a bit of imposter syndrome, initially refuses the crown, but Kage, the ultimate best friend, reminds him of his strength, and with renewed confidence, Bojji accepts. All the knights kneel, swearing their loyalty. It's then that Kage drops the bomb. Bojji could read their lips the whole time. The knights break down in tears, realizing he knew about all their insults but remained kind anyway. As the kingdom celebrates, Kage feels he no longer has a place there and leaves the castle. During his coronation, Bojji notices Kage is gone and runs off to find him. Healing advises him to go after what truly matters to him. Meanwhile, Kage is rejected everywhere he goes and finds his new home destroyed. Just as he's about to break down, Bojji finds him. Bojji reveals he has given the throne back to Daida and wants to start his own kingdom, asking Kage to join him. Kage, in tears, accepts, and the two friends set off on a new journey together. Elsewhere, Oaken, whom everyone thought was defeated, begins to reassemble himself, but is captured by Despa's forces.